Alright, here we are back with the XO-1. This is the first generation XO laptop. This was one of the original buy one get one laptops. It's featured on one of my other videos, which has gotten such a great response I thought I'd do a follow-up. Today I want to go over disassembling the main system unit. One of the reasons I love the XO series laptop, especially the XO-1, is that it was designed for serviceability from the ground up. It was designed to be field serviceable by the users themselves, that being impoverished children in third world countries. And it really is easy to work on. There's a few caveats, however. The early XO-1 had a fault, or a design flaw. A pretty serious design flaw, actually. If the CMOS battery, which is a rechargeable coin cell, if the CMOS battery were to die, the machine would lose its date and time settings, rendering it, in XO's own words, or the OLPC organization's own words, bricked. That's right, it will brick the laptop if the CMOS battery fails. Now this is true if you're running one of the older firmware versions. I'm not sure which one exactly, but if you have the machine fully updated, which I suggest you do if you own one of these, make sure you're running the latest firmware and OS release. Because if you don't, and your CMOS battery fails, the laptop will not boot up at all. Now there are procedures in place on how to overcome this. You actually have to remote into the machine with a serial adapter from a desktop or portable PC, and you actually have to set the date and time through the command line. But if you're the average user, you won't know how to do this, and you might be very intimidated by the process. I actually saw a pretty informative video on how to do this, and it isn't that hard. But you actually have to telnet into the machine over a serial connection, which involves adding a device to the main board. And I believe this gentleman actually soldered directly to the main board to make it happen. But there are ways to prevent that from ever happening, and that is by upgrading and using the latest firmware. So, let's take it apart, shall we? So the first thing we're going to do is pull the battery. I'm not going to waste any time in disassembling the lower case, only because there are very few reasons why you'd want to do that. There's not much in there, really. Just the battery connector and the keyboard. This is a brilliantly designed machine. Absolutely brilliant. All of the sensitive components are on the top case, so that if there ever were a liquid spill situation, you would not damage the sensitive electronics. In fact, the only thing that would get wet would be the water-resistant keypad. So liquid spills onto the keyboard, even if they penetrate the keyboard, will only short out the keyboard, meaning a repair would be less expensive than, say, if you were to spill onto the logic board, which is all up in here. Okay, step 1. Rotate the display to gain access to the screws that are located just underneath the display housing. And there they are, 1 and 2. Remove those 2 screws with a Phillips head screwdriver. I suggest a number 1 Phillips. Okay. Step 2. Rotate the display in the other direction. Like so. And once you remove the 4 screws, it's just a matter of pulling off these little end caps. Just slide right off. And we can gently remove the bezel, just like that. I mean, seriously, it couldn't be easier. And make sure we take off the gamepad controller, just so that it doesn't get lost. And take a look at the thick rubber construction of this switch. I mean, this is like space shuttle type quality here. I mean, this is something that I am very impressed of its build quality. It's just amazing. You'll notice when you take the display out that it's actually shock mounted. And you're going to notice one other thing which is quite unusual. If you work on laptops for a living like I do, you'll notice that the backlight inverter is actually part of the display assembly. And I think I know why they did this. Well, number one, it simplifies the parts inventory, and it simplifies the service procedure. If there's no backlight, and in most cases it could either be a faulty backlight tube, in this case it's fluorescent, so it's a backlight tube. It could also be a faulty inverter, or it could be a bad cable. This eliminates that diagnostic step, and the child who's using the device simply has to replace the display. Because after all, they were given classes on how to service these machines if they were to break, which is really cool. Once we drop the display down slightly, all we have to do is release the cable catches and pull the display away. The inverter is mounted inside this metal box in the bottom of the LCD screen. And there's the inverter power cable. So we're going to put that aside. Now we can gain access to the logic board by removing a total of 4 screws, which are located here. Well, before we do that, it's important to put the display up vertically, and you'll see why in a minute. These 4 screws are marked clearly with an arrow indentation. I have to say, after about, I've been working on laptops for about 15 years now, I can easily say this is the easiest one to service I've ever come across. And before we pop the back cover off so you can see the logic board, let's take a quick look at this hinge. Now it's a very nicely made hinge that contains just 2 wires. One going to the keyboard and trackpad assembly, and one going to the battery. Just 2 cables is all it takes to get the job done. Now we have to angle the display at a slight forward angle, like so, and then we can slide this back panel right off, just like that. Couldn't it be simpler? It's also important to note that we really don't want to manipulate the display assembly when the covers are off, because it's running at very... we've basically removed all the support for the unit, so we don't want to flex it too much. So this is one massive heatsink, so there is no mechanical or active cooling at all. If you want a good video on this motherboard, I can't think of who made the video, but somebody did a video on how to replace the coin cell battery and how to unbrick the XO. Just do a quick search on unbricking XO and you'll see there's a couple of videos on the subject. But there was one gentleman who did a video explaining what every single chip does. So I'm going to try to do that myself in just a minute. But first, I want to show you where the coin cell battery is. Remember, this is a rechargeable coin cell, so do not attempt to put in anything other than an original ML1220, which is what we have here, or equivalent. Because if you put in a non-rechargeable coin cell battery, you could potentially damage the logic board. At least I'm told it's a rechargeable battery, and when I cross-referenced that part number, it came back as a rechargeable, so let me confirm that real quick. Okay, it looks like it is a lithium alloy manganese dioxide organic electrolyte battery. It is a rechargeable battery, like I said earlier, so keep that in mind. The Wi-Fi controller, Wi-Fi controller is right here. It is not replaceable, unlike most laptops. It is not an easily swapped out component. It is soldered to the board. The chip is right there, and there's more stuff under there. The antennas are very short. They run left and right out to the little ears. Let's see. Very few cables in this laptop. Because of the way they built it, they've eliminated most of the flex circuit cables that you see on most laptops. And they've eliminated the complex video signal cable, or the LVDS cable on modern ones, that would go right through the hinge, and is usually the first one to start wearing out in high use conditions. So we only have, again, 2 cables. One of them is power, positive, negative, with a monitoring set of wires there. That's probably going to a thermistor on the battery to detect overheating. And then we've got the keyboard trackpad cable there. Now let's go ahead and pop the heatsink off while we're here. This is something that I don't believe the typical OLPC users will be doing. There isn't much you can do on the board level unless you have a highly skilled workforce servicing these. But we're going to pop the heatsink off and take a look anyway. Just held in by a couple of screws. Alright, now we can see the AMD Geode processor. Look at that. That is massive. But there it is. There's the heart and soul of the beast. That is the video controller and processor in one. And this would be the Northbridge chip, I believe. I believe that's what that is. AMD Geode Northbridge chip. Here we have our memory chips. Bing, 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 bing. For a total of, what was it? 256 megs of RAM. And one of these chips is our onboard storage. Let's see if we can identify it. Yeah, I think this is it right here. That's the flash storage chip. 1 gigabyte flash storage chip. I'm going to look up that part number and see what it comes back. Okay, it is in fact the 1 gigabyte SSD NAND flash module. That's what it is, and there it is. Okay, so now that we've identified what our major chips are, there's our that's our SD card slot over there. And let's see, I don't know what some of these other ones are for. There's our power supply fuse right there. If there's no power to the unit, that would be the first thing to check. One of the videos I saw, and I wish I could remember who it was, I'd give him credit for it, but he made a point to explain how the DC input jack is more advanced than most laptops because it can handle a wide range of voltages, which is good to know. So it's a little more robust, a little more solid, can handle more. And again, if I can find the video I saw on the teardown, I will share it on the description of this video and give him credit because it's pretty well explained and well thought out. I like that. So, let's talk a little bit about the Give One Get One program. The original Give One Get One program ran from, I believe, November 12th, 2007 to December 31st, 2007. And I worked it out to where there were about 45,000 laptops. Now, the program was only offered in the U.S. They could only ship them to U.S. addresses. So if you were to buy 2 and you kept 1, you would have to be located within the continental United States. Or, I'm sorry, within a U.S. territory. If, assuming everyone who participated took one and donated the other one, because you could donate both if you wanted to, then that would mean that there are just over about 45,000 of these in the U.S. ever. Unless they were prototype units, which there could be others, or developer units. But this is a very limited machine as far as availability. There aren't that many in the world in unused condition, or like this one is, in pretty much unused condition. So it's a pretty rare computer, and it's a collector's item. If there ever was a modern computer that would be considered a collector's item in the near future, this is it. I can't think of any other computer made today within the past 10 years that would be more of a candidate for collector status than the OLPC XO-1, which is why I made it a point to buy one while I still can afford one. Because they're at a point now where they're pretty much obsolete in every way, shape, and form. There's not much you can do with these anymore on the modern internet. And the operating system really cripples the machine's abilities. You can run other flavors of Linux on these. In fact, someone even managed to run Windows XP on it, a very stripped-down version of XP. But it's still very limited. But one thing it has over every laptop on the market today, since the iBook, the original iBook, is that it's one of the most durable and weather-resistant laptops you could ever buy. So I'm told that once you do upgrade the firmware on the XO-1, that little flaw where it doesn't boot if the date and time are wrong is effectively repaired forever. So that's good news. But you still can't buy a battery for this machine. I've tried. The best thing you could probably do is have a battery pack rebuilt, but they no longer produce batteries for these. You can't buy them. There are no leftover batteries left in stock anywhere. So it's pretty much end of life, if you want to say that. It's end of life, as we know it. So. But then, of course, here at BBISHOPPCM's world, the manufacturer dictated end of life is irrelevant. Because we can get things to last as long as we want them to. As long as we're willing to throw the time, money, and energy at them, things can last forever. Anything can last. So, let's see how long it takes to boot up. This thing is quite slow. Oh wait, forget. Gotta put our little ears up. There we go. That'll make it faster. Just kidding. Oh! I think we're booted up. Cool. Kick ass, man. But yeah, there was one other missed opportunity, and I harped on this in my last video. There's no touchscreen. Come on. Really? That's the one thing that I expected the XO to have, was a touchscreen, but they didn't do it. And that would make tablet mode even more functional. I don't know why they didn't. I don't know why they didn't take that opportunity and make it happen. But they didn't. Alright, we're fully booted. Just to show you what version of the firmware I'm running, I'm going to now do a quick... open up the control panel here. We're going to take a look at what version we're running for the firmware. Okay, we're running Q2F20. If you're not running that, you're not, or anything older than that, you're due for an upgrade. And I would suggest doing it before the servers are shut down and you can no longer get the firmware downloaded. Unless somebody happens to BitTorrent it. So, okay. We're going to shut it down. Here's another bizarre thing. This means, let's say, do not baby, do not give bath, do not burn, do not pass under a beaded curtain, do not plug in, I guess, do not beat with a wrench, do not step on if you're a baby. Okay. I guess that's pretty much that. We're going to end this video, and I'm going to find something else to do. Thanks for watching.